Week 13 starts with a bang. Maybe the game of the week is the Thursday night game. The Atlanta Falcons hosting the New Orleans Saints, their NFC South Division rival. Atlanta's currently installed as a 3.5-point favorite in this game on BETDAQ. 56 the total. That's the highest total we've seen in the NFL so far this season. Both of these teams have excellent offenses, and only one of these teams, Atlanta, plays any defense at all. The Saints are last in the NFL in yards per game allowed, rush yards per game allowed. They're 30th in pass defense, 28th in points allowed. It has been ugly on defense for the New Orleans Saints this season, and that's a big reason for their losing record. The Saints at 5-6 right now after a tough loss to the San Francisco 49ers last week. That was a big game for New Orleans. They'd dug themselves out of the hole they put themselves in to start the season. Remember, Saints lost their first 4 games. They brought it all the way back to 5-5, but they've got a tough schedule the rest of the way. At Atlanta this week, at the New York Giants next week, followed by home against the Tampa Bay Bucks. Tampa's been playing some good football. Then on the road against the Dallas Cowboys. So New Orleans really needed that game last week because now they already have 6 losses. They probably need to win out if they want to make the playoffs. That's probably not going to happen. Now, obviously, if they're going to win out, they need to start this week on the road in Atlanta, and that's going to be a pretty tall order because the Falcons 10-1 this year, tied with Houston for the best record in the NFL. Of course, their one loss was to these New Orleans Saints a couple of weeks ago on November 11th in the Superdome. And to be honest with you, the Saints beating the Falcons, that shouldn't be surprising. That's nothing new. These two teams play twice a year, obviously. They're in the same division. And the Saints have just been the better team these last few years. They beat the Falcons 4 straight times, 7 out of 8. They seem to just have their number. Now, maybe you might say that's just more motivation for the Falcons, and you might say that these are different teams this year. The Falcons at 10-1 and the Saints, they've never had a real good defense these last few years, even when they won the Super Bowl, but this is the worst defense the Saints have had in quite some time. So maybe all those trends will turn around. Maybe the Falcons will finally get one against the Saints. Maybe they'll get it in a big way. And to be honest with you, when this line first came out, I did lean towards Atlanta. I thought that, that was probably a back-breaking loss for New Orleans last week, and on a short week on Thursday night on the road against an Atlanta team. We mentioned the motivation that Atlanta must have after getting beat soundly so many times by their division rival over the last few years. I thought, well, maybe this will finally be the time Atlanta wins convincingly. But I'll tell you what, as the week has progressed, I'm really starting to second-guess myself, that original thought, especially when I hear about all the injuries in the Atlanta secondary. Remember, their best cornerback, Brent Grimes, he's already out, been out all year. But now Asante Samuel, their second-best cornerback, he's questionable for this game with a shoulder injury. I was hearing somebody earlier today say questionable to doubtful. Their other starting cornerback, Dante Robinson, he was questionable early in the week with some sort of illness. He did practice today, apparently. So Dante Robinson is apparently going to go. We don't know if Asante Samuel is going to go. Injuries in the secondary are not a good thing when you're going up against the New Orleans Saints. We know all about Drew Brees and this Saints offense, humming right along this year as usual. Brees throwing for 290 yards per game. It's tough to bet against the Saints offense. I mean, it's almost impossible for me to bet against the Saints at home. I know they didn't cover last week against the San Francisco 49ers. I think that puts them at 15-4 against the spread at home in their last 19 games. But I tell you what, indoors against a team they've beaten regularly recently, 7 out of the last 8 times, it'd be tough for me to bet against the New Orleans Saints in this spot, and as of now, I do have a slight lean towards New Orleans, plus 5.5. I also have a lean towards plus 56. I know 56 is a big number, and I know that in the NFL, for example, you could have a 27-23 game, and that's considered a high-scoring game. 2 good offenses could produce a game like that. Think of last week's Atlanta-Tampa Bay game. You can have a game like that. You would never call that a defensive struggle by any means, but still did not approach 56. I know a lot of things have to happen to get to 56. Some turnovers, things like that could mess that up. But I have a lot of faith in the Atlanta Falcons being able to go right through this New Orleans defense. Atlanta has been so good on offense this year, especially in the passing game. They've really evolved into a pass-first team under first-year offensive coordinator Dirk Cutter. I have nearly as much faith in Drew Brees and that Saints offense in a must-win spot on national television against a division opponent that they're very familiar with. I have nearly as much faith in Drew Brees being able to move the ball and score points on that Falcons defense. So I like both offenses here. I think the best bet is a bet on offense. I do lean towards over 56. I guess I have a slight lean towards the Saints, But not much would surprise me in this game, except for, I guess, a low-scoring game. Really looking forward to it. Should be a good one on Thursday night. Saints at Falcons.